Okay, and we're back. Let's take a look at some professional codes of ethics. And the one thing I would like to do is look at it and see what types of ethical reasoning are involved. Okay, these are the Army values, and this is what the Army ethics is supposed to be based upon. Let's take a look at those. Looking at those that looks a lot like virtues. So this seems to be a virtue-based system. Now, the advantage of this system, it provides a general framework that is easily memorized. Now, they didn't have this back when I went through basic training, but I'm assuming this is one of the things that the basic trainees have to memorize. The disadvantage is sometimes it's not really clear how to connect the value with the action. For example, look at integrity. It says integrity is doing what is right legally and morally. Okay, how do you know what's right morally? It talks about honesty, uprightness. Okay, honesty, that I can see well that. What is uprightness? Okay, the voice of deception. That kind of comes back to and steadfast adherence to standards of behavior. Okay, so where do we find these standards of behavior? Now, I happen to know when I was going through, there was a code of conduct if you specifically got captured. The NCOs had the NCO creed, but the problem is at this point is this is not really a self-contained system that you have to reference a lot of other things in order to understand it. But it's easy to memorize and easy to recite. Okay, ACM is American Computing Machinery Society. This is American Society for computers and IT people. Here's its general ethical principles. If you look at the one, it says contribute to society and to human well-being, acknowledging that all people are stakeholders in computing. This looks a lot like contributing to the common good. This is utilitarian language, and this is fairly common for secular conduct codes. Okay, so we took a look at 3 different codes, and we took a look at what went into each of them. So how do you apply ethics to a situation? And when I finally got to that part in the book, Moral Choices, I said I'd seen this before because this was kind of a new take on an old idea. We'll get to it in a minute here, but I want to give you a little bit of background. Okay, we have here the scientific method. You might well have studied this since grade school. I seem to remember that we were given a substance that we just called bluestone, and we had to figure out what it was. And apparently it ended up being called for sulfate, but we had to ask questions. They guided the research, and we did little experiments. Then we finally came to the conclusion at the end of it. Okay, and what happens here? This is a very narrowly focused question, and this is a very narrowly focused possible solutions. And you only have basically one thing you're trying to find out, and you have one way of finding it out, and then you conclude. Now, the next to this is an Army staff study, and this is what I used for 28 years of my career. And this is you still have a well-defined problem, but the problem is that could be several possible solutions to it, and there are different criteria for the solutions. And the example that they like to give us was, what sort of lawnmower should we use to cut the grass on post? And there's a lot that goes into that. There's the fuel economy of the lawnmowers, or how reliable they are, how easy they are to get. There's the size of the post, what you need. I mean, can you use a push mower? Doubtful. You probably need to use what we used to call a bush hog. Okay, then you talk about you look at each course of action by itself and look at the advantages and disadvantages. Then you cross compare them, come to a conclusion. Okay, that's an Army staff study, and I've used that for the past 28 years as an Army officer. Now, they mentioned in the Penn State site, they talked about an engineering study, and that what they had looked a lot like it. I also say IT study because it's basically it's the same thing. And you have the steps here, and what you have here is you have several possible solutions, and you have several criteria, and but you have a well-defined problem. Now, all 3 of these have a well-defined problem. Now, it turns out in ethics, Ethics does not have frequently does not have a well-defined problem, or it might have a series of problems. And you have that here where it says you have you have it here where it says determine the virtual principles that have a bearing on the case, and you say you have determine the ethical issues. Well, if you have more than one ethical issue, you have more than one ethical problem, and that's kind of implicit in some of these others. Ray, this is the analyses out of Moral Choices, the textbook that have borrowed to put this together. Penn State is online, and the Army system is online. You may use whichever one you wish. Okay, so you have these three different ways of doing this, and all three of them, you spend some time trying to find out what the problem is. Be a little patient with yourself about that. And it's interesting that Penn State talks about identifying the stakeholders. That's project management language. You have to find out who is going to be affected by your decision. That's less apparent in the Ray and the Army methods, but it's still there. So take a look and choose your adventure. You have your choice of which one of these three you want to use. I would like to know which one you decided on. Okay, so now we know about ethics. What is AI? Most of us, when we talk about AI, we talk about Chat GPT. There's also some other components of intelligence, and what are we talking about with intelligence anyway? And artificial intelligence is the ability of a digital computer or computer controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. It's a machine that seems to think like a human. You have these components here of intelligence, and this is from Botanica. Okay, these are components. These are not necessarily applications. And you have learning where you have machine learning where you could actually teach it. Like you can say that, well, if jump is jump, then you could use an ED rule for all other. And notice it says regular verbs because this is English. And I had a German roommate criticize English. He said in every other language you have the rules and exceptions. In English you have the rules and the cotton picking two or three things that actually follow the rules. But anyway, you get the idea. Learning is where you actually teach a computer what is right. Okay, you have reasoning where you draw inferences like, and it gives you an example here. Okay, Fred has to be in either the museum or the cafe. If he's not in the cafe, therefore he's in the museum. That is reasoning. And that's deductive reasoning. Now, inductive reasoning is that we've had this problem of this sort before. This must be the same problem and must need the same solution. Now, problem solving, this is really interesting because this is what they use in board game. This is the old thing about teaching a computer how to play chess. This was one of the first uses of AI, and I believe they finally got it now where the computers can hold their own with humans. Devising mathematical proofs, the mathematicians, if you might be interested in that. Okay, perception. This is where you have your autonomous vehicles, and you've seen the various triumphs and tragedies of that. Okay, language, not last but not least, is, Chat GPT is a massive language model. Okay, let's see if we missed anything. Nope, we have all of them. Those are the components of it. I said, okay, how do I get from components to applications? And I was looking around, I was Googling, I wasn't getting anything, and I finally got mad and I said, well, let me Chat GPT it. Let's see what we came up with. Okay, first as we talk about Chat GPT, the Army guy in me said, what does GPT stand for? And this is what it stands for. This is the explanation. This is basically how that chat model works. Okay, then I said, what are the main application areas for artificial intelligence? Here's the ones that we have here. There's a list of them. There's some in healthcare, finance, retail, and e-commerce. And it's really interesting because if you look through there, I don't see any for IT as itself. So, well, it says continue this conversation. Let's see what happens. Yeah, they want me to grid. That's fine. Okay, so I've included a link to this to get you started. And also, you may use ChatGPT in this assignment. I will ask you to reference it either MLA or APA format. Okay, what we got next? Okay, if this is interesting to you, here's some further resources. Here's my references. And we are at the end of this video. Thank you.